Hello, this is my Linguistic History trailer for the BLE 400 course. Okay, so to start off, a little bit about my linguistic history. I'm studying on my mom's side. So my grandma on my mom's side, so my mom's mom, was raised in a house where both of her parents spoke German, but they did not speak it around children or really around a whole lot of other people, because German was stigmatized around World War I and World War II. That's kind of this time. However, they did incorporate small phrases of German into English. My mom remembers being yelled at in German when her mom was mad. And she also remembers a few songs that her mom used to sing her growing up. So they had little elements of their German language and their German heritage included in their kind of everyday lives. And my mom learned German in high school because that area of Wisconsin was very German. She said they didn't offer a whole lot of language options, but pretty much every high school in that area did offer German. Then my grandpa's father was born on the boat coming from Germany to Ellis Island, so he was also of German descent. And my grandpa's mother was born in Germany, and she moved from Germany to Wisconsin when she was quite young. And they spoke German at home and more English at school. So they weren't, again, German was a lot more stigmatized during this time. So although they did know German, it didn't really get passed down, because it was kind of something to be frowning upon, kind of something to be embarrassed that you're talking German during the World Wars. And then we have a family photo right here. You can see a lot of my uncles. It's a pretty big family. Uncles, aunts, cousins. This is a pretty old photo. I'm about 4 in this picture. I'm in the front. I'm in the red shirt. On to my dad's side. So, my grandma on my dad's side, so my dad's mom, she is from Canada, and she grew up around English, although a lot of Canadians do speak French. Her family did not speak French. She had, neighbors and people who did speak French just because it was Canada, but her family did not. Then her parents were Scottish and Ukrainian. And then my grandpa's father, so, yeah, my great-grandpa, he spoke French and English, and then an unknown dialect, African dialect, because they came from Africa to Trinidad, and it wasn't super known exactly where in Africa they came from. So an unknown African dialect is what we say. And then my grandpa's mother, so my great-grandma, she spoke Romani, which is a Roman Gypsy language, because I'm descendants from Roman Gypsies. And she also spoke that same unknown African dialect that my great-grandpa also spoke. So my grandparents' parents were from Trinidad, which is a small island in the Caribbean. And they likely only spoke English because anything other than English was considered a peasant language. His words, not mine. But it was very stigmatized if you weren't speaking English. Kind of similar to my great-grandparents on my mom's side. So schools in Trinidad taught English and French. It's not super certain if they knew French or English, but they for sure did speak English, know English, and they primarily used English. That is what's known. And then my grandpa was obviously born and raised in Trinidad, and he moved from Trinidad to Canada to pursue higher education at about 25, and then he met my grandma in Trinidad or in Canada, and then they moved to Minnesota around 33, and that is still where my family resides to this day. So this is a picture of my dad's side of the family. On the left is my dad, then is my grandma, then my aunt, and then my grandpa on the very far right. They're just kind of posing for a photo in this one. Okay, so the linguistic impact of my history of linguistics. So both my parents grew up in monolingual households. So they both spoke English and only English. That's what they kind of heard growing up. So when they heard about the opportunity to go to a bilingual public school in Minnesota, they were really excited to have their kids learn a language, and they were just really overjoyed about this opportunity. They actually used to drive me pretty far from, because we used to live outside of the district that did the public school free bilingual program. So they used to drive me into school until we moved into the district. So because of school, now my siblings and I are fluent in English, or fluent in Spanish, while my parents are monolingual. Yeah, that's supposed to say Spanish, but this is kind of fun because my siblings and I can sometimes have little private conversations that my parents don't really know what's going on. We did that a lot growing up. It's also just kind of cool that we know something that our parents don't. It's kind of a cool feeling. Okay, so on to my my years through school. So early childhood, I'm just saying this is before kindergarten. So I went to daycare for a bit. It was at somebody's house. And then my mom became a stay-at-home mom. This is a picture of my mom and I. So I went to preschool starting at either 3 or 4 at a community education program. It was just our local community education program, which I later went to school through that district. And then for my little linguistics bit, I used to watch shows that demonstrate little bits of other languages like Dora or Ni Hao Kai Lan. So elementary school, I started kindergarten, and my public school in Minnesota offers 2 bilingual programs. It offers Chinese immersion or Spanish immersion, so it's pretty much you'd spend your whole day speaking that language, and you have very little instruction in English, and it helps you pick up the language really quick. I would say by 2nd grade, I felt pretty fluent in Spanish, which is pretty impressive. But I spoke only Spanish in class until 3rd grade, and then in 3rd grade, we got 1 hour of English lessons daily. This was kind of vocabulary, grammar, that kind of stuff, just kind of getting us up to par with our own language. The majority of the kids in my program were speaking English as their primary language at home. So basically the whole class was together in this, learning the new language together. So it was kind of nice at times because at recess we'd all usually talk in English and hang out and everything. But then in class you kind of got in trouble if you spoke in English because we were trying to speak only Spanish in the class just to get the language down. So our curriculum was the same as the kids enrolled into the general education, only ours was just in Spanish. And almost all my friends growing up spoke English and Spanish just because I was in that program, and that's kind of how I met my friends. Here's just an example of my coursework from elementary school. You can see it was all in Spanish. The prompts were in Spanish. I was told to write in Spanish. So it was a really good way for you to get the language down at a pretty early age because your fundamental writing skills and your fundamental skills are being taught and absorbed in Spanish. So I still remember Spanish very good to this day, and I feel confident in my skills. On to middle school. So middle school was a bit of a transition. I know only spoke Spanish during Spanish class and history/geography class. So it changed from being in Spanish all day, every day, to only about 2 hours of Spanish. The majority of my classes were now taught in English, and I was a little bit behind in some subjects when I transitioned from doing them in Spanish to English. So I had to have a little bit of extra tutoring in math because some of the concepts weren't being transferred over in my head. And this was a rather frequent thing in the program too. A lot of the bilingual parents used the same tutoring company, actually. So that could be seen as a slight deficit, but we were all able to catch up, and we all graduated, and we all did well in the end, and we know a second language. So many of my new friends in middle school now also spoke English. This was something a little bit new. I couldn't just like break into Spanish in small groups with them anymore because the majority of them didn't speak Spanish anymore. So on to high school. I took Spanish for my first 2 years of high school. That was kind of what our school, that was kind of like the cutoff point. The first year was just kind of like another general Spanish class. The second year was a mandatory AP prep class that anybody who went through that bilingual program goes through the AP Spanish prep class. Then we took the AP test, and then you're done with Spanish. The school doesn't really offer a whole lot of other classes. So I took IB French, International Baccalaureate French, for 2 years, and it was an accelerated class only available to Spanish speakers. And because of this bilingual program in my high school, I was able to graduate with the bilingual seal from Minnesota, which was just a really cool opportunity that my public school offered. On to college, present day. So I tested into the Heritage Language Learner Program at ASU, which I really enjoy. It kind of ties a lot of our like coursework back to like it just kind of ties the concepts together a lot easier for me than some of my other Spanish classes that I've taken in the past. So I've taken a few Spanish classes here at ASU, and then I also took Portuguese for Spanish speakers. So I have a little bit of French, a little bit of Portuguese in my brain. I also studied abroad in Spain, where I lived with a host family that spoke only Spanish for about 6 months, which was a really cool opportunity. I really feel like my Spanish got a lot better, and it really, I got to just like live life and interact with people in my second language, which was a really cool opportunity. So I will be hopefully graduating with a minor in Spanish and an ESL and bilingual endorsement when it's time for me to graduate. Then obviously my multilingual elementary education degree. More in my abroad subject, just because this was my first time teaching students languages. That happened in Spain. I taught them for about 3 to 4 months. I taught 2 separate schools. I taught 6th grade and high school. A typical lesson for me looked like I was sharing a little bit about kind of America, and it was really just language practice for them, having them hear an American accent, an American speaking English so fluently. That was mainly the main premise of the lessons. But yeah, I did a lesson on like American football and American holidays, on how big America is and how many different like sections we have, on some of my hobbies. I really enjoyed teaching English. Kind of opened a new door for me. I'm also going to mention my summer plans this summer. This summer I'll be volunteering for Nepal in a month, and I'll be teaching English in a Buddhist monastery. So the students their age ranges will be from 5 to 10, and their English abilities will also vary. I'm really excited for this, and I feel like studying abroad in Spain kind of has motivated me now to want to teach English to different students and kind of be a better English teacher and just get my English linguistics down better. So the connections with this course, I made 3 connections. So first off, I mentioned additive bilingualism, which was a concept mentioned multiple times throughout the book. So coming from an English-speaking household and entering a bilingual program kind of placed me in an additive bilingual environment where Spanish was added as the second language while maintaining English. This is like a very good example of additive bilingualism. It can be seen in lots of other ways, but this is just the way that I saw it in my own life. My second connection was metalinguistic awareness. So my bilingual education gave me the ability to think about and manipulate language. So I can kind of go from thinking and talking in Spanish and then kind of alter my brain to thinking and talking in English. just because I have that ability. I can't do that with French and Portuguese just because I'm not as fluent and it takes me a little bit longer to think and process what I'm thinking about. But I can kind of switch back and forth from Spanish and English in my head pretty easily. And Baker and Wright cited this as a hallmark of bilingual individuals. And then my third connection was the language status. So as a native English speaker entering the bilingual program, I experienced the reversal of language power dynamics. Spanish was the dominant classroom language, and this kind of helped me develop empathy and cultural competence. So I now know kind of how it feels to be that really confused kid who the teacher is just saying these words and you don't know what they're saying because you don't speak this language. I now, growing up in this setting, has kind of taught me how that feeling is, and I now feel like I have a lot more empathy for my students who will be going through this exact thing. Obviously, it'll be a little bit different for them because they probably won't be in like a bilingual setting depending on what I'm teaching, but you never know. Okay, so for reflection and teacher identity, this class has taught me many new strategies for language learners, as well as opened my eyes to new methods and perspectives. I really thought this was a really interesting class, and I enjoyed the materials and everything. And as for my teacher identity, having been an English speaker in a bilingual program, I understand the challenges and strengths of navigating two languages. And once again, this gives me empathy for emergent bilingual students as well as monolingual English speakers learning a new language. So I feel like I have a lot more empathy, and I just like know the perspective of students entering the classroom not knowing a language a lot better than if I hadn't gone through this bilingual program that I went through growing up. And yeah, that's about it. I really enjoyed this class. And yeah, thank you.